Well, welcome back, everybody, to the Shifting Gears podcast. We're glad to have you here. If you're watching live, join in the chat. If you're on YouTube, support via super chat. If you're over there on Twitch, give us a follow. And just before I started up here, we were kind of just talking about um, copyright claims and content ID a little bit on the platforms before we really got into the main topic here, which you really came to see. But we were talking about how Twitch is being real draconian on their on their um, on their kind of the rules enforcement centered around that. And Skull Crusher on the phone here, he plays Farm Sim, and it's like, well, you keep the music off, and we were talking about, you're real careful to not get those strikes. But you were telling me about a situation where it was kind of going off, I guess, a little bit, or getting.
Well, yeah, I mean, I was, and this is probably where I kind of started not playing music anymore because I didn't realize what was going on. But I was just playing the music that was in the game, which isn't popular music, and it's just in-game music. You just figure it's part of the game, so why can't I use it? And all of a sudden, I didn't get a strike or anything, but all of a sudden I started getting these emails from Twitch saying that they were going to check out my footage to make sure there was no copyright issues and everything, and nothing ever came of it. But it kind of got me to thinking maybe I shouldn't do that anymore. And then
Now you're talking about
in-game.
You're talking about in-game music, and not like, okay,
Yeah.
you had your music playing over on and your microphone was just picking it up.
Yeah, no. Well, yeah, my microphone can't or hasn't seemed to pick up anything like that yet.
Okay.
Because I have done that before, where I've had the music on and I've streamed so that I could listen to it, and I made sure that the stream wasn't hearing it.
Yeah. Well, see, I've heard that's happened is somebody had a ringtone or something, maybe, or whatever, and it went off, and even if it was like a MIDI, tune of something, some song, and the microphone heard it, and boom, their stream got shut down, or they got a strike, or I've had that happen in videos I've taken outside, like outside at a group thing, so like car shows and stuff, and they always got the winga dinga music going in the background, and I know I've tried to upload those, and even though I'm talking over it, there's noise, there's engine sounds, whatever, it's still caught it, and it's like, oh, I heard Beach Boys, so claimed by BMG or whatever, but
well, and what's funny is, like, we're talking about this, but I don't know how many streams that I've watched, like just in Farm Sim wise, that you'll hear someone playing a radio station or something, and maybe they get banned and I don't know it, and I don't see them ever again. Some of them, I try to follow some of them, but sometimes it's hard to remember who's who too. So,
well, exactly. But anyhow, that
that would be another plus for Mixer, because I never had that problem with Mixer.
Well, that's sort of the thing. I mean, Mixer, well, and to a lesser extent, Twitch, up until Amazon bought them, and then Mixer, especially, is kind of the wild west. They didn't have mechanisms in place to catch a lot of that, and same with Twitch. because there's been lawsuits about the the music companies, the RIAA and the MPAA, which is the movie and record company deals to get DMCA takedowns. YouTube's been at this so long, they finally got. It's still not great, but it's better. At least it's more fair on the creator side, like me, okay, and the people who own the copyrighted content side, where there's mechanisms at least so you can connect and dispute your side. So like, okay, I believe this is fair use, blah blah blah. Then and then YouTube, you can kind of come to agreement. It's still heavily weighted to the copyright holders side because they're the judge, jury, and executioner a little bit. But like with game companies, for example, like you're talking about, they know they don't want to copyright you, strike you, or content ID you, because that gives them free advertising. It's the record companies and the movies that just don't like it, that what you're watching here, no matter how kind of terrible our stream is, it's some kind of content. It's entertainment. People watch this and interact with it. We've had chatters in here, and people watch the after stream and comment and everything. Well, that's taking eyeballs away from a TV or a movie screen, and they don't like that, you know. And that's how this is. Now Twitch is just, like I said, they're just getting afraid of getting sued. Same with YouTube, but at least YouTube has slowly come around to the fact of they need to give a person like me and you some power to make our case, because the platform was built on people like us. So they can't alienate us, but they can't alienate the content and the advertisers either. So it's all intermingled, but and you're kind of new to this online landscape from a creator's perspective, so I know it may not make complete sense, and probably my viewers don't totally understand it either. But and I can't say that I'm an expert in it either, but I've just been doing it, and I've seen a lot in these 15, 16 years that I've been on YouTube for specifically. Facebook's the same way. With them, they have they're kind of bots that need to be trained a little better. I'd like to say out of all of them, YouTube's probably the best. But
Facebook needs to be trained better.
Oh, well, that's it. That's what I'm saying.
The whole company.
Well, that's a different conversation entirely. I'm just talking from a content matching, because it's not a human that is. I mean, because technically this picture right next to me here, I'm using it as kind of these pictures as kind of a meta thing, so it should be all covered under fair use. But yeah, it's like technically, I don't own that. So Facebook may trigger off that and say, oh, well, we'll block this whole thing just because of that image or something. Anyway, let's shift some gears here to why these images and stuff, and why people might have came to watch this. We wanted to talk about used cars, which we've kind of talked about used cars before, but this is going to be unique because we were chatting earlier this week, and you're sort of maybe in the market for a new used vehicle. I've recently purchased one, or if you follow my channel, my auto blog, auto vlog, I guess, and I need to update that, which an update is coming. So get subscribed, ring that bell so you don't miss that. I'll talk about it. But back in September, I bought a used car, and situations changed, and I need different types of transportation. But let me throw it over to you and explain your situation and kind of where you're going with that, and I'll kind of intermingle my feelings and my situation, because I wanted to talk about it too, with my vehicle experience that is happening my used vehicle experience that is happening right now. So basically it's your pickup. You bought it
Yeah,
in 2000. It's a 2001. Of course, you bought it used, but it was only a few years old when you bought it. Correct? Do I remember that
yeah, it
right?
was. I think about it like way back in '06.
Yeah. So it was
I've had it for like 15 years,
well right
16
now,
years,
yeah, but
15
it was
years.
only about less than 5 years, or maybe 5 years old
Yeah.
when you bought
Yep.
it. So obviously you've gotten your use out of it, but what's happening? What are you thinking? What's going through your head? Um what
Well,
are your potential?
it's I guess um some of it's been maintenance, some of it has just been wear items and stuff, but um this weekend like the trainee is like it's been last couple of years been kind of showing some signs, but it's like really gummed up and not shifting.
Okay, so
And I
just shifting
think from what I
problems.
understand, that's actually a common problem on those pickups. That's like the one thing that they do.
Well, yeah, but it has you've
Oh.
been driving it for 15 years since you've owned it. You bought it with what, 50,000 miles on it, something like that, or
No, it was like 100,000.
okay, but then you've probably put close to 100 on it yourself.
Not quite. It's at seven. Yeah, it's at 177 right
Well,
now.
same as, I mean, but yeah, 70,000 miles over 15 years. Of course, that's not a lot. Of course, you've had other like beater vehicles, is why, uh, just
Yeah, well, I
which we
mean,
talked about
you were kind
before,
of the
but
you were the kind of the start of that. You and Zer and Redline, because there's just like, well, why drive your goods? Because back then I had a really nice Ford Ranger, and we were like, well, why put the miles on that when you could just you're driving it daily to work. Why put the miles on that? So then that's when
save
we
it
got
for
into
the
that.
reason you
We
had it
talked
was
about
to
the
haul your
Geo
four
Metro
wheeler, and then of
um,
course once you got a
some of the others.
yeah, and then when you got a house, got a lawnmower, clippings, trash, it's nice to have a
Yeah,
pickup. I
and
mean,
well, and this pickup in particular, I bought it when we were racing still, and
right,
um it compared to that Ford Ranger, obviously I could get my four wheeler in the back of it,
right.
so without a problem. Um, and then I don't know if I used it. I know I used the Ranger a lot on the farm. I don't know if I used the other one so much, but or this one so much, but um, I had four-wheel drive if I needed it and stuff, which lately has been more and more of like might need it for winter, but do I really use it?
Right, that's something
Um,
you kind of was asking me, and I said, kind of, let's save it for the podcast. And of course, this is all situational. My situation is different than you. I could tell you my opinion, but really, only you can make some of those decisions. As far as the wintertime, four-wheel drive, I'll explain from my perspective, of course, where I live and things like that. But even if I live back where you were, um, weather conditions can be very similar, obviously. Um, I get along very well and have always done it this way. And of course, I got four-wheel drives too. I got two pickups. One I'm trying to get rid of, actually, but because I don't need two pickups in my situation. But um, anyhow, I've gotten along really well with uh, doing the beater car thing, kind of. But even the quote good car is just I buy an extra set of rims, and now you wouldn't necessarily have to do it. It's just I do that for of ease of swapping, but running snow tires and they're front wheel drive cars, of course. Most everything's front these days. Even though the real world, I'd run snow tires, but anywho, and that gets me around, gosh, 95% of the time. and places I want to go or need to go. And then, like I said, those blizzardy types. Well, then I in the extremes, it's either I just don't leave the house, but then I do have the 4-wheel drives. But let's pretend like I didn't have the 4-wheel drive. Snow tires would get me nearly everywhere, and then if it's that bad, I'm just not going. Now, when I head to the mountains and all that stuff, it definitely is nice to have a dedicated 4-wheel drive. And I'll get to my situation. My new car is all-wheel drive, but and that almost could eliminate the need for a true 4-wheel drive, like a pickup. I do other things. I need a pickup, but your situation, maybe you don't. I mean, that's up to you. That's your thing. It's really nice to, when you need to haul an old couch off sometime, you have a pickup to do it. But then again, how often is that? Or an old washer or dryer, or that kind of stuff. The grass clippings, like we've talked before. But anyway, my if I had to downsize things, I could get along with a car, a sedan, with snow tires for the winter type condition driving. But to be honest, my beater, I swapped this year. I didn't even swap them because I ran around on my snow tires all last season, and there was only probably about 5 days I really needed them, and I just wore them out because they're so soft tread compound. So this year I just was like, well, unless we know we're going to have these blizzard-like conditions, I'm just not going to put them on until I really need to. Well, turns out I didn't need to this year, but that's my situation. Let's get to yours and your specifics.
That's funny you say that, because normally I would drive the pickup like at least a couple times during the winter because of winter conditions, and this year I didn't. But that goes into my situation's changing too. So with my work situation has been changing and is progressing, it looks like it's going to change even more. So
are you thinking about not replacing the pickup? I guess is that where we're going with this? I feel like that's what we were kind of talking about.
This is kind of where I'm at. So I looked up to see how much it would be to replace the transmission, say that was worst case scenario. I don't think it is. I think probably what it needs is like taken to the shop so they can just go through it and clean it up.
Yep, flush or something, or at least a good
well, no, not a flush, but I don't know, like refurbish it or something,
or just put a reman in or something. Yeah, I know what you mean.
Clean it up, because I think that's really what's going on. Is the passages are getting gummed up, is what's going on,
and so the valves aren't shuttling back and forth, so that's why it's not shifting. Probably.
Yeah, and I looked it up. So worst case scenario, is like, well, it's I'll just round it up just to make it a nicer number, but it's like, let's say $4,000. Well, if you look at what I paid for the pickup back then compared to, like, say you tried to find something comparable now, I'm looking at like an extra $5,000 to $10,000 for the same vehicle. So they've gone up.
Well, yeah, pickups always pull a premium, especially 4-wheel drives.
And I've been replacing things that have been needing attention and stuff. So I'm kind of leaning towards just going ahead and fixing it, and but I'm not gonna do it. Like, I'm not gonna take it in tomorrow and get it done. So I'm kind of like, well, I'm just gonna keep my eye open in case something comes along, but I'm not gonna keep my hopes up that something will.
Right.
The other,
Well,
I mean, the other part of this is like there's it's not just the tranny that needs fixed. I mean, the tranny is the part that needs fixed to keep it running, but it doesn't look like it used to. It's rusting out, and um, so at what point do I want to just like do I? Because I like to have a nice vehicle. So at what point do I keep putting money in it, or or do I just go get another nice vehicle?
well,
It's
and
kind
that
of where I'm
and
at,
see,
but
that's always the challenge, and that's going to be different for everybody. Um, yeah, and it sounds like you've thought it through. I mean, I know you. I'm saying this more for the viewers out there, but see, that's
you know,
go
you
ahead.
want to know something funny? So like I've been thinking about this. So obviously because of COVID, work has been changing for everybody, and so um last year I worked a little bit from home. Well, and you know the situation more. I've kind of told you a little bit about it, but
Hmm.
um there's some things going on at my company right now that we are I that the potential to work at home is very highly going to happen,
Okay.
and I won't need this is the other thing. I may not need two vehicles like I've been doing. I may not need the daily driver and the pickup.
Right.
um and I would not say anytime soon, but I would say probably in another year. From the way things are looking, and it'll be a year before this all comes to fruition. This fall, though, and I don't know if I've really talked to you about that too much off air, but um, this fall, though, I am gonna need two vehicles. Um, there's no way that I can't get around it, and so that's kind of where I'm like, well, maybe I'll just do the tranny. It's the cheapest thing to do instead of buying something new and getting stuck under another loan.
Right.
And and then I'll have both vehicles going again, and I'll be driving them and um getting my use. I'll get my use out of it. Even if I had to replace the tranny, I'll get my money out of it.
Well, right.
So
And you know me, I'm always a huge fan of if it, like I said, if it makes sense, situational and everything, is to repair rather than you know than replace or buy new or something like that. I mean, I'll just go into uh, sort of my situation with the current used car that is still new to me. Like I said, those out there in YouTube land or even on Twitch, if you want to go to my YouTube channel, my main YouTube channel that we're streaming on right now, um, you can go find my auto vlog series. You'll see the car, what I bought, and I got for my situation and my deal. I got a really good deal. Didn't pay anything for it. It does have a lot of miles on it, but it's cosmetically is in really good shape. And mechanically actually in good shape, but it needs wear items. But what used car doesn't? And it has had been well kept, even with it has its maintenance records and stuff like that. So um, anyway, the auto vlog explains this stuff in more detail, and I'm going to release another episode here very soon explaining some of the more major stuff that I've done to it. And it's not stuff that it's like it had to. It's like it's broken. It's just worn out and will fail sometime in the future. But I'm replacing it before it is. So, the teaser, I just really just put all new suspension parts under it, and basically anything that goes up and down or spins around on the axles, I replaced. Now I have the luxury of doing it myself, and so bought the parts cheap. I not sponsored. I like Rock Auto. I do buy parts on Amazon. I do go to the parts stores, shop around. But like for this kind of stuff, I don't always buy the cheapest of the cheap, but I look for parts that have some sort of upgrade to them. So like the lower control arms, for example. Different manufacturers have different sized ball joints on the bottom there. Some have the OE, like direct OE size. I mean, they're all OE fit. Okay, they're all just going to bolt in there. But some of them have a little bit bigger ball and socket and have grease zerks. Some don't. And even some of the more expensive ones are not greasable, whereas some of the cheaper ones are. And I usually choose. That's something I look at when I buy parts. So able to do this very inexpensively. Obviously, most people have to take it into the shop. Of course, there's the labor. But however, if you buy the car right, like what I did, and you even have to take it in the shop, and I have taken in the shop for some work. Again, you have transmission thing you're going to be doing. Okay, my transmission is fine, and actually, fluid looked really well, and it had a record of actually having the transmission fluid changed at least once in its life, which is most people never do that. I went and had a fluid exchange done, of course, new filter and all that, and there's no problems with it. Had it checked out there. Picked out a shop to do that. Obviously, that's something I wanted them to put it on the machine and get all the fluid out of the torque converter and stuff. And then I had some more major work done. Well, major work as in a lot of man-hour stuff that I could do, but it was just, it wouldn't have saved me as much money, more so the time. I had that done, and then all this suspension part, and then of course send it to the alignment shop, and mainly because I didn't want to wear out the new tires I put and stuff like that. I mean, that's a big deal too. But drives like a brand new car, and I'm still under the money for what this car normally goes for, that would still need basically all that I've done to it. And it's not like it's a mountain of work, and it's not like all work that had to be done right away before you could do it. I'm just one of those, I like to put things back to as factory fresh as possible. And then I don't have to think about it for the next 50,000-60,000 miles. Not everybody can do that, I understand, but as long as you do it before it's before you have a problem. I mean, that's what you've been doing with your pickup. That's why you've gotten 15 years and like 75,000 miles out of something you bought with 100 on it. It's because you've done this stuff over the years. And transmissions don't last forever, and yours isn't broken. No. It just, like you said, needs a little attention. And for the money you're going to do, you can drive it a lot longer like that. But things like it doesn't brake. I put all new brakes on it too, my car. But anyway, and then I have other cars. Honestly, I could downsize these other cars now, because this one is now the good car, and then the former good car might turn into the grocery getter, and then my beater commuter, maybe I should get rid. I don't know. I'm going through this. Maybe I should get rid of that and use the old good car as the beater commuter, and the good car doesn't get driven except for trips or outings and things, or maybe a little bit around town when the wife needs to do it. But basically, keep the miles off of that and do all the grocery getting and everything in the old good car, which, again, I've done all suspension work, done other, belts, hoses. I've actually had to put a radiator in it because the tank cracked, and things. But it's still probably got a good, I could still drive it probably another 100,000 miles on it, and over its lifespan, I've not put more than, and I've had it 15 years, and I've not put more than, probably, I had to guess, probably $1,500 or $2,000 over 15 years. That's not very much. You can't hardly buy a half decent car for that. And that's kind of, I feel like that's sort of your situation too with your pickup, is you haven't probably put that much money when you consider how much you've gotten out of it, how
Well,
much you've driven it.
and here's the other thing. Like, okay, so I fixed this. Those particular models, this go for like 300,000 miles.
Well,
Now, granted, I mean, it's not like I didn't have to help it get there, but the engines and stuff don't fill usually unless
you're
they're
right.
not kept up right for another 100,000 miles.
Well,
So
you're right. We've talked about this before. Yeah.
that's something else that I'm definitely keeping in the back of my mind. It's like, God, it looks like crap, but it runs good. Other than this issue that I'm having, and I was like, and how much get it fixed and get it going again? How much more life do I have? It
Well,
has in it.
well,
It's
let's say, let's just hypothetically say you could go buy another used pickup, used half ton. I don't care what, you're a Chevy man, but when doesn't matter. For $5,000, I'm just throwing a number out there. Let's say you could just go and do that, and maybe you can, but let's just use that as our example here. You buy that $5,000 pickup, whatever it is, and it's going to have over 100. I just guarantee, even at that, I
yeah.
guarantee it. Okay.
You're looking at over 200,
Well, that's the
maybe
thing.
even 300 by
But
then.
let's say you find something that's over 100, 120 ish, at $5,000. You're going to have to do everything that you've done to this pickup, either somewhat in the near future, just for peace of mind, like I would do. I mean, that's what I'm doing to my used car. Is it's just doing it all up front. I'm kind of doing it all up front. I mean, I am piecemealing it out, but within it will be, I will not even own it a year, and I'm pretty much going to have it refurbished virtually to new. Anything that's rubber, all that stuff that can fail, it's about 10 years old. It's when rubber's really starting to break down, and of course some of this stuff is just worn out. But it wasn't like it was rattly and falling apart and all that. But suspend, like that pickup, like this hypothetical pickup we're talking about, it's going to need shocks all the way around. It's going to need brakes all the way around. That's even if you bought it with 50,000 miles on it, it's going to need brakes, okay, and shocks,
Yeah.
and all that stuff, because that stuff just doesn't last. I mean, the nature of the part is those aren't 100,000 parts. You probably borrowed time on wheel bearings, I mean, and maybe axle seals, or an axle seal, and that ruins the brake shoes in the back, or brake, or if it's got discs, just makes a mess and ruins those. So there's something. U-joints, you got those to be thinking about. And then of course, not to mention, like I said, all this other suspension stuff, ball joints, and the rubber bushings are all going to be wobbly, sway bar end links, and all that stuff. Now, you can drive that stuff a long time worn out, and you're not going to hurt anything. It's just it may wobble around and all that and wear your tires out. But that's stuff you can do. But you're going to have to do that with a $5,000 deal. Well, you've already depreciated this thing all the way down. It's just a matter of, do those rust holes on the fender wells that it probably has, does that bother you? Kind of thing. I mean, that's really what it sometimes come down to. And then people get into this trap of really the keeping up with the Joneses kind of. Oh,
Well, and that's it too. But I mean, like, yeah, that's where you really got to look at the functionality and stuff. But like, some of it is also what's better for your budget. A lot. Well, actually, I mean, that dictates pretty much everything. It's like,
well, right, but there
well,
is functionality,
everybody won't.
and there is functionality too, because that's what prompted sort of.
Well, what I'm saying is though is like, okay, so let's say the trainee's busted. $4,000 is a lot easier to come up with than than what I was saying.
Then
The equivalent is
12,000,
like
yeah,
20,
or 10,000
the
or
the
20,000.
15 to 20,000 that I'm seeing it's going to cost. That's 4 to 5 times more.
And are
and
those
and
and are
depending on
those
what you're
pickups now?
doing
Hold
and
on.
where you're headed in your
What's
life.
kind of the age and mileage of? Because obviously you've looked into it. I have not. So, but what are you getting for that roughly? Age and mileage, because it's not all about the mileage.
Yeah, that's pretty much it, is age, and like I'd be
But are
getting
we
back
talking?
to.
Do you get to something under 5 years old at that price, or are we still looking at 10-year-old, almost getting up to 10-year-old, 7 to 10-year-old
No, you're
vehicles?
looking at the ones I'm seeing, you're looking in the last 10 years.
Okay, and see, that just seems like a lot, and to me, just seems like a lot of money for. You're still going to need to eventually do a lot of this stuff that
Well,
you've
that's it.
kept up
See,
on, but and that I've
that's the
done.
thing, is like, I mean, and yeah, eventually you're gonna have to replace all this, but when you get to that kind of mileage, like get back to 100,000 miles, some of this stuff, it doesn't need to be done until 150. So
Well, right,
that
but it
gets you,
also depends. I mean,
if you're lucky. I mean, there's obviously there's going to be some cases that doesn't work in, but um, yeah, you're looking. You got about, depending on how fast you're going to put that 50,000 on, you got a little bit of time to
well, right. It's
get
not
things
like you
going
got to do
again.
everything out of the gate, but
Exactly.
you're still looking at, you probably at creep it up to 10 years. You're definitely should be looking at seriously considering a coolant flush, uh, and such, and that water pumps can't. I mean, I've seen water pumps go long time, but that seems to be about the life when a water pump starts weeping. It's not maybe a lady on the side of the road, but it could. It's just more the could. Um, Now we're talking pickups that generally have V8s and timing chains, but there's vehicles with timing belts and things. And 10 years, that rubber, boom, and there you go. So that's probably more of a now versus later, even if you're paying 15 grand. That's the other thing. And of course, that's making model specific. Like, for example, my used car, um, it wasn't giving the codes and things, like if some of these cam phasers were the chains were sloppy enough that the cam phasers were having troubles, or wasn't sludged up or nothing. But I just know, I'm reading, I need to put timing chains in, and that's one of the first thing I did before really wanting to trust it on a long trip. And I'll be thanking myself for the next 100,000 miles, because I'll never have to think about those. I'll get rid of it before those things ever give me a trouble, because they're generally reliable, but then they generally can eventually cause a problem. And I'd rather take care of it now before it is a problem, and thank myself later on some of that stuff, paying myself forward in a way, um, with my particular situation. Now, like I say, your old V8 that you got, you don't have to really worry about that so much. I mean, timing chains get sloppy, start, you know, losing a little bit of power because of it, but it's not like they generally don't break in your kind of application. But newer vehicles, that's something to think about, but especially timing belt type vehicles. I'll jinx myself by saying this, but I'm gonna try to never have to own something with a timing belt, but that may be hard to get away from with more modern engines. But anyway, back to our situation is, that's a lot of money, and it still is going to need some of the same work as that $5,000 pickup's going to need, or
Yeah.
whatever. So I just feel people
Well,
fall
and
into the trap
so
of they just want new. Or like
and
new.
it here's something else I've noticed. And so, like, uh growing up, it seemed like it was. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe you noticed something different, but it seemed to me like growing up, the Chevys, the rocker panels, and the fender. Actually, the fenders more so than anything else would rust out on those things.
Well, I think almost all pickups do.
But I don't. I mean, I I don't remember the others doing it so much, but nowadays I've noticed since mine's kind of gone, how many pickups actually are that way.
Well,
Um,
I just think they all do, just because that's just the design of the fender wells and things.
well, and
I mean,
it's that, and
my two pickups don't
it's
have any, but that's because I did a bunch of preventative, as spraying them with because they were in perfect shape, spraying them with POR on the back sides, and then like on my Ford, doing it on the front sides, then putting a truck bed coating and everything. So no matter how much mud and dirt and water lays in that little channel, um, it has to eat through all of that before it can even begin to start eating the factory primer and rust proofing, and then get to the metal. And but that's because I did it before, long before, you know, uh, and most people don't or can't do that. So
well,
I'm
yeah, I
unique
think a
that way.
lot of people, like, some people are just like, okay, well, I'm just getting rid of this anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Well, yeah, they never
Um,
get it to, like I said,
and
the
then
guy that had
that's
it before
by
you
the
didn't care,
use.
because it's like he got rid of it within 5 years, and it's not going to rust out in five
Yeah,
years. He's leaving
yeah,
that for you. You know, he left that for you to
yep.
bear. That cross for you to
And
bear.
and actually, actually, it did fairly good for the most part. I got several years out of it, but I know this. I know probably the salt and stuff that they put on the roads really didn't help that situation.
Well, yeah.
Um, but it's amazing how many, even the brand new ones, how I mean, not okay, not the brand new ones, but even the generation, the the I don't want to say the generation back from this one, um, they're uh, they're hard to find ones that aren't rusty.
Well, yeah, and because that would have been, think about that. Well, no, that wouldn't have been the square body. Yeah, I know which ones you're talking about.
Yeah,
Square bodies
it
were
is it is kind of a square body. It's like the new version of the square body,
right.
because it was a square looking body, because the now the new ones, like, I can't. It's hard to tell the difference in the new ones between a Dodge, Ford, and Chevy, because they all look the same
That's
to
another
me.
topic.
It,
Maybe
well,
I
and the
agree.
reason why, something that's kind of funny. So the only reason I know this, because I haven't been keeping up on the body styles of them so much. They're just too new, and I haven't really seen what the newest ones are like. But so playing this farm sim, that was one of the things that kind of brought it to my attention. Is like, uh, they were they they have mods, and the Ford, Chevy, and Dodge look like the same. The only thing difference is the emblem in between them
Yeah.
and the grill. That's the only difference. They all look the same to me. You
Yeah,
can't tell the
I
difference anymore.
I agree. They are getting a little.
It's almost like they went. They're. It's almost like they're doing NASCAR trucking with
Yeah.
them.
Well, it's
They all have to. They all have to fit in a. They all have to fit in a certain specification, and the
well,
aerodynamic
well,
package and
that's a
stuff.
lot of it, and safety has a little bit to do with that. You know, safety regulations. You know, as far as as far as that goes for crash impact stuff. But you know who, you want to know who really started that? Uh, you could argue, or began at the impetus. I think, my opinion, is what they call the second gen Dodge, which is the new Dodge. So 92 or 4.
Yeah, it was
92 or
92 when
4.
they.
I think it's 92.
I'm pretty sure it was 92 when
But
they
you know,
flipped.
when Dodge went from its square pickups, which all pickups were square, pretty much since after the 1950s, but even like the 50s. Actually, if you look at trucks the whole time, they've kind of all mimicked each other a little to a certain extent. But
well, yeah, you know, thinking about that now is like the Dodge was the first one that just broke away
they
from
broke
that.
the
We
mold,
all
and I
got to
think,
look the same.
yeah, well,
And
they got that big
Chevy.
Well, they got that big rig look with the
Yeah,
fenders and then the raised hood. And I mean, I remember being a kid, and specifically my memory is burned into that. And I even have some of them. I think I've talked about it, Andy, I guess. But the the display at Husker Harvest Days when the new Dodge came out. Now I remember the Dodge tent. Of course, they're all there. The All the manufacturers are there, but you. I don't remember if they were just across the way or just down the road.
well, at Husker Harvest Days, and maybe you're talking about an older one than what I used to go to them. They're all on the southern end all together.
Well, I don't remember the exact layout. It seemed like I remember they were towards the middle, but they were near each other. But I just remember
Well, like I
the
said, they
new
could have changed
Dodge. But I just
they could
remember
have changed the layout.
the new Dodge, the banners. I had the yardsticks, bandana, all the little premiums. I still have some around. Hell, I even have the plastic tote bag and I know I have that stuff and the brochures and everything. And that showed everything from, of course, the Dakota to the to like chassis cabs and the Ram vans and things, all the different options and things. But I just remember as a kid, looking at Chevy, Dodge, and their pickups, and we're just walking, kind of just walking by, and of course they all have some country, some no-name country music singer in their tents because farming, Anyway, but Dodge seemed to have the biggest setup, and they had, like I said, all these chassis cabs and everything. And if I remember, Ford and Chevy didn't have, like, they had their 1 tons and stuff, obviously, out there. But Dodge had that, and then, like I said, the chassis cabs, their 1.5 ton stuff, just a bigger display. But I just remember they were lined up, and that front end, that grill, that everything. I just remember as a kid, like these looked, what I is futuristic, but they just looked so. It's hard to know now because the pickups I grew up in, and you too, but even seeing the new pickups back then, the 80s and such, and at that time the newest pickup we owned, which we bought new, was a 1985 3/4 ton, and just stripper, but stripper model, but biggest engine and heavy suspension and all that stuff. But it was a box, and so was the Chevy of that day too. That was still the real square bodies were around, and then so that's what we saw driving around our county, and then to see this Dodge there, I'm like, it looked like a semi truck, especially the 1 tons. Especially, I was whatever 13 at a time or something. It's like it looked like a miniature semi truck sitting there. When you looked across the way at the Ford, even the 1 ton just looked like it looked like a more modern version of our pickup. And it's like, are these the same? I didn't know all the things that I do now, but it's like, are these the same type of vehicles? As far as heavy, as far as duty, what they can do. um, you know, uh, and okay. Anyway, long story of getting to the point is Dodge just started that because then, of course, then Ford redesigned their F-150 with that, and I still hate that era, but people love
Well,
them.
actually, they
Those
started
those,
with the they
those
started with
sloped
the
aerodynamic, and I understand they sold like hotcakes, but I just even when they were new, I
you,
thought they just
but
something didn't look right
they kind
about
of
them.
they kind of started with the Power Strokes first.
Well, Power Strokes got
That
that redesign later, but yeah, you're right. They
Or maybe no, maybe I'm sorry, maybe I got that reversed. The Power Strokes stayed square in
well,
you're right,
because they couldn't
the
get that Aero
F-150s
hood,
change.
they couldn't get the big engines under that Aero hood. But it was all about fuel economy and just, and then they started. But that was the bubble era of cars too. So the pickup Ford got bubbly, and your Chevy's kind of even like what yours is, kind of's got those, and the interiors. I mean, I'm not really brand loyalist, but I guess I've kind of come to uh, enjoy is maybe the word, or enjoy GM cars at least. But I gotta say, those interiors and some of the stuff, it's got to me like play school buttons for things. It's a little, those rounded, just, but it didn't, even at the time, it kind of was a little whatever. Uh, but then I think the other two were definitely playing catch up with that kind of design. And that was the first time that I think Dodge got into second place, beat Chevy to get in that second place. Otherwise, Dodge, as far as sales, um, was concerned. I could be a little bit wrong about that, but the exact timing of it. Um, but anyway, they kind of had to catch up because, yeah, even the brand new 92, in which we have one, 92 Ford, compared to that second gen Dodge, you set them next to, and that Ford looks 10 years old sitting next to it. Now today, everybody loves that style, everybody loves that second gen, and they hate the new stuff, but that's just how it is. But the funny thing is, because I own one of those second gen, now mine's a 97, so a little later. Um, but they had a nice roomy cab. That's the other thing too. I remember as a kid is huge, and that center armrest console thing was set up so it had tons of storage, and it was designed so you could put a of the day laptop in there, would fit in there, true, and it was a nice interior. You know, Ford and Chevy always had fairly nice interiors compared to Dodge's, but then Dodge kind of stepped it up. But then it's like you take off that and look underneath, and it's still a 80s era and a classic, I should say, Dodge drivetrain and everything under there. Which in this case is not necessarily a bad thing, but there's no technological advancements in the drivetrain there. Whereas Chevy went to IFS and things, and of course they always rode well, but because they always had coil springs and stuff, which was also always a better ride. People could argue the load carrying capacity and things on that. I'll let other people debate that, but but like underneath the Dodge was still classic Dodge. I don't know if you want to call it durability, because they're all pretty good. They were all pretty good, but I mean, there was nothing new underneath the skin, but the skin made the pickup, you know. I hate to say lipstick on a pig, but that's the best analogy, because it's like it's the same thing as that the precursor to it underneath basically, and then a new body and nicer and much nicer interiors. Um, and functionality. Now, granted, they did get a whole new engines and all that with the Magnums, but basically those were just better developed, 318s and 360s and stuff, small blocks and whatnot, from the late 60s designs. But the big thing is, of course, having the Cummins, which of course they had those prior to this too, but that's also what made it too, is having that big old C stamped on that valve cover too. I know.
And now Ford has to make them for him.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, things change, but I mean, but if you think about how
No,
different...
I mean they still make the Cummins, but Ford bought Cummins and was trying to push Dodge
well,
out of it, and then they found out that they couldn't.
yeah. Well,
So now
but if you just
Ford
think
is making...
it was kind of a brilliant move in a way, to sort of try to get ahead. But look, I'm more partial to Ford and Dodge than the Chevys, but that's not to say that they're any less. It's just, I understand more how those are put in pickup terms, how those are put together. But I guess I go back to the cars. I'm more comfortable with how GM has put things together, for better or worse, I guess, on that. But I guess in a roundabout way, we've talked about this too, is like these days, speaking of used cars and like your pickup, even going back to 2001, or even like my Dodge, it's hard, which is a 97, or late, I think when you get the late 90s, it was hard to buy a truly bad vehicle. Every vehicle has its own thing that, like everybody says the Dodge transmissions were junk, and I half agree with that, but also that comes back to sometimes maintenance, or people using them not how they were necessarily intended. Yeah, look at your engine and everything; it's fine, And honestly, with getting up to 200,000 miles, your transmission should be having some sort of issue. The fact that it still moves around and can probably just stand to have just some clutch packs put in it, is a testament to design. You couldn't say that about a 20-year-old Chevy at the time, 2001, when that one was produced. You couldn't say that about a Chevy transmission, or a Ford, or Chrysler either. I mean, all of them. You couldn't say that about any of those things.
No, I mean, it would probably, the situation, like if I were in this situation then, like 20 years ago, it's probably would be, okay, let's just say the only thing different is the pickup styles, not not my situation, not anything else. It's probably gonna be the same answer. It's just that maybe I don't want to say this, maybe maybe what needs to be done is a little bit different, because what's failing is in a
Well, right. Yours has
a
an
little bit
electronically
different situation.
Yeah, well, you have electronically shifted
Yeah.
transmission, so that's a little different than an old mechanical style. My Dodge, same deal, is an electronically shifted thing, even then. And
Well, I guess what I'm saying is, like, if you're saying, like, well, an 80s style would, 20 years ago would have been failing. It's like, but what I'm saying is, okay, well then I'd still probably go ahead and replace it.
well, right, yeah, that's what I get. It's just you would have been replacing it just sooner, probably, more than likely. I
Yeah.
mean, we're all talking hypothetical here, and somebody can
Yeah,
chime in then,
yeah,
and they'll...
we are. I mean,
Well, I guess I just know that, like, I grew up in some 70s cars, 80s cars, and at 175,000 miles on your pickup, it'd be blowing smoke, and so down on compression, it'd have a hard time starting, whereas that's not the case for you. That's not what's
Yeah.
that's not what's um that's not what's failing, and honestly, that engine is probably although we keep saying this every week and everything, we got to have old Redline on. He didn't get that nickname for nothing, but I tell you what, I don't know any other person that actually has had, quote, blown engines. He has blown engines all the time, but I mean, how I grew up, and my family and everything, and how many vehicles. Well, none of our vehicles ever broken a rod. The worst thing that ever happened was a camshaft broke, but I think that was a factory defect. But you know,
See, I can kind of relate more to the other side because I've blown enough. Well,
yeah,
I
but
should say I've had some situations that are like,
yeah, but you've never a rod going, or Redline. He's had rods through the block. I mean, kind of thing.
I had a piston go through the block though.
Well, and which car was that then?
The Buick.
Yeah, but that's
Blew a
because
hole
the
through.
intake manifold dumped all the coolant in there and hydrolocked. But that's I think that is probably what happened, I guess. But
I don't. Well, maybe
see
I don't know. I don't.
But see, how many miles did that have on it? It was
that
over
well, okay.
100.
So
Definitely.
yeah, it was,
and that's kind of a known issue. I mean, there's one thing where I have the same engine in my Impala, but
but we're also talking about a car that was like, at the time it was was an 86, and those, I don't think those were. I think.
Oh, wait a minute! You're talking about a different car. I'm sorry.
Cars.
I was thinking about like your mom,
yeah.
your mom's car. I'm thinking. Never mind. I'm sorry. You're right.
Oh yeah, no.
You're right. I'm thinking of something different. Never mind. Forget it. It is not relevant to that car. I forgot. Yeah,
that one. So the one you're talking about, I did break the piston, but yes, it was because it was hydrolocked. Because
but
the coolant dumped into the engine block.
But see, that was an '80s car, and that was still when there was still kind of, sometimes there could be those kind of deals. I'm saying, and it's not that people don't have those problems, but I'd say the people who have problems today with 2000s cars and newer, it's because of just lack of the basic. They run them out of oil. I mean, even new cars use oil. I mean, it's not. People don't understand that. They're a lot of them are designed to use oil, and even they generally should start using less as you break them in. It's just they shouldn't use too much. More than there's a recommended amount over an oil change period. That's why most people have no problems as long as they're doing the regular, whether it says 5,000 miles, 7,500 miles. I mean, the old rule of thumb of 3,000 miles kind of outdated these days, but even if you just went strictly by the book and your book said 7,500 miles, okay, that's what some of them say now. The engineering is designed so it isn't going to use unless there's a leak, but theoretically a new car shouldn't have that, but they do. I mean, not every car is perfect, but but if you're watching stuff, that doesn't mean you cannot never check your oil in that 7,500 miles if you're just if you're. And that's why I'm saying people put pistons through the block or rods through the block in modern engines because they just don't even attempt to think about maybe I should and that I should have it checked. Either check it yourself or have it checked. I mean, a lot of shops do this kind of stuff virtually for free because they want you to come back for the service. I mean, And I get it. People are busy, and when you got kids and all that, it's easy to get. And you're like, well, it's a new car. It's only 2 years old, or it's only a year old. I don't need to think about it. And that's why they get into that trap too. Is I bought a new car. I don't have to think. Well, not. Cars are pretty damn good these days, but they're not so good you don't have to think about them. And that's why they have so many warning lights and low oil sensors, which I think are good items. It's just people just don't feel like they don't have to think. They just want to turn it on. It's like this. They just want it to work, and most of the time it does. But there is still some things you need to do. You gotta charge it and maybe not drop it once in a while, kind of thing. So, anyways, I think you get what I'm saying. I hope the audience is getting what I'm saying. And I'm an oddball because I buy used stuff and make it new, and so then I don't have to quote think about it, but I do. I check that stuff every time I rotate tires or swap those snow tires. I'm shaking and checking suspension bolts and the rubber parts, and that's just me. But even if you don't do that, a little prevention goes a long way, and you don't have to be a mechanic. You don't have to work on your own stuff to do that. To get a car to last a long time, because like I said, cars are pretty darn good these days. Anything made in, I'm going to say, the last 20, 25 years is actually pretty good. It's pretty good. It's usually the little crap that we've talked about this before. It's like those play school buttons that are in your 2001 and my 99 and 2001. Those fail, and as God, get that stupid radio button or that headlight switch or something, or the automatic mirror switch. I mean, I have in my auto vlog, I have one of those. Got power, heated mirrors, defoggers, all this crud, and it's a switch module. Can't make one of the mirrors move, and it's like, okay, somebody would say, well, send it to the junkyard because of that, kind of thing. And yeah, you take that to the shop, that's a $300 bill because I got to take the door panel off. It's a $30 switch or less, 25, I don't know, something like that. Nothing.
Well,
but
and this goes kind of, I've said this before in past streams, and this kind of goes, I think this is still a very good analogy, is like, so think about it this way though, like you spend $300 on it, so it goes 300 miles, it just cost you $1 a mile. I mean,
well,
it's gonna go through, you pay $300, it's gonna go 300 miles. I mean, and it's gonna go more than that. It's just gonna cost itself out.
Yeah, well, exactly, and that's more how I think about things. But a lot of people, can't just drop $300, and that's where the mentality comes. It's like, I could have used that $300 to go buy buy a couple video games, I guess, but food and medicine and all that. And I mean, I don't want to get into a whole socio-political discussion about things. I don't like spending I don't like spending $300 as much as the next guy, but I think about it's an investment in a future that I don't have to worry about. I don't have to worry about that switch, meaning the window won't go up and down, or something won't, or that the contacts will short and burn the car up. I mean, that's probably a stretch, but that kind of thing.
That wasn't quite what I was going with it, but that's okay.
Well, I know, but most people don't want to have to shell out any money. Nobody wants to
Yeah, but
have to. They
what
want
I'm
to choose
talking,
to. They want to choose when they
but
spend
what
their
I,
money, not have the situation choose for them. I guess probably
yeah.
why people don't think, well, that's only $1 a mile if it gets me 300, 300, and the car will get you more than 300 miles down the road. But
God, if you're putting $300 in it, it better go
yeah,
300 miles,
but
or you really need to relook at this investment.
well, right, but see, it's the fact that you got to. I mean, God, here we are going again, but you got to make choices, and people generally don't like to make that choice because if you're not a car nut, a car is just a means to an end. It's just another appliance, I guess.
Yeah, I guess I don't like to think of mine that way, but I
Well,
mean
no, but
that's what they're kind
you're
of turning
different.
into.
Most people just think of them as appliances. It's much like the stove doesn't turn on. One of the burners works, but not the other, and they it's almost like that. They don't want to, they gripe about spending $50 on a little micro switch thingy mobob or whatever, or $20. But it's the fact they have to take the time to mess with it and do it and look up a YouTube video, or if they're not that capable, get somebody in. It costs them $150 because for a service tech to replace a $20 switch, that kind of thing. But what is your time worth too, when it comes to that?
Yeah. Well, it's not just time. How much is my sanity worth too?
Well, yeah. Well, it's
Because
why I do.
depending on the
It's
now
why I take
switching a
stuff to
switch
the.
when
It's like why I take some things to the some jobs to the shop. Same difference.
ex-
You know, I
exactly.
could do them.
I have literally taken
Nothing wrong.
I've taken a tire off a car to do look at doing a wheel bearing, and I mean this was a complicated wheel bearing. Don't get me wrong.
I know which one you're talking.
It had like three different spots the bolts had to go through, and they were all like all over the place and stuff. I took the tire off and I looked at this thing and I'm like, no. And put the tire back on and called the shop.
Well,
I'm like, I'm not doing this.
I'll tell you with this new car that I was going to have new tires put on, or on the rims, and what the hell? I okay. I can only jack one end up, like most people, one end up at a time safely. Okay, I could do, but I just didn't want to do all that work putting in all 4 jack stands and all that stuff. Well, anyway, so I jacked the front end up, take the tires off because I bought the tires cash and carry, and I was just going to have them mounted and balanced, and have the tire pressure monitor sensors too, because the batteries, they weren't failing, but they're gonna fail, so just why not put tires on? A little extra cost, but the last time I'll have to buy those probably. Anyway, that's beside the point. Because those wheels hadn't been off or rotated, and it probably the car had kind of been sitting for a while, and their aluminum rims on cast iron brake drums, they're the corrosion, and they're hub centric on there. And I've had this before. I work so hard just banging, hammering, trying to get the damn wheels off because they were stuck from the corrosion on there. That's why I hate these kind of wheels. I got those off, and I was like, geez, and took them down, get them mounted, and then I was gonna put them back on. I went to the backs were the same way, and I was like, F it. Drove it to the tire shop, mount them back, get those things off there, mount them balanced, put a little anti-seize on there, so next time I take them off, they just fall off, and normally a job, like I said, it's normally a super simple job, take a wheel off, and I spent 20 25 minutes per side, just to get the corrosion busted loose to get the wheels off. you know, the front wheels off. And then when the back ones looked like they were going to give me the same trouble, they didn't just kind of a couple of taps or whatever with the rubber mallet pop off. I was like, screw it, let's go into the shop, you know. Uh, but took it off the jacks, drove it down to the shop, and said, "Here, do it," you know. Now I used to have my own tire machine, so I could do the whole job, but I don't have that anymore. So, but yeah, so even me, can restore a whole motorcycle, but I'll still take tires into the shop sometimes. When because like I said, my time's worth a lot more. But no shame, and there's no shame out there doing it, when you got to do it. But you can save yourself some money, and that's what usually gets people into trying to at least attempt like your wheel bearing and such. If it was more like the wheel bearings that you've probably done before, and I know that I've done, they're fairly got a little bit of tools. They're fairly simple, well, they're straightforward. I'd say.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, like, the last couple of Chevys I had have been a lot easier. This happened to me on a Ford, and it happened to be on a car that kind of surprised me because it was kind of their economy car. It was made to be a daily driver.
Yeah,
It was made to be a very efficient car on gas and stuff, and made to be, for lack of a better word, it was made cheap. And but for whatever reason, you got to this wheel bearing, and it was like it ended up and the part itself ended up costing about 5 times what I normally pay for a Chevy bearing.
yeah.
And that's not with the labor in there too. I mean, this was a complicated part, it was an expensive part, and then it even took the shop a little bit to get it
Well, yeah,
done
because it was
too.
probably
A couple
you're all
hours.
rusted. What was that? That was at what year was that?
That was that Ford Escort.
Yeah, no, what year? I want to look that part up because I believe you. But what year was that? 90.
Gosh, what was that? That was might have been a 98.
Okay.
Maybe it was. I'm guessing. I actually honestly don't remember.
I'm just because I remember when that kind of came up. Oh, that's just the wheel bearing itself, which wheel bearing and hub. That's yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, but then you got to get it out of there. Yeah, those are not as cheap and easy because they yeah not like the GM and well other vehicles use the more GM style where it's the 3 bolts, whole assembly just comes out and
Yeah, well,
they're
and
like
like their assembly is like $50 max, and
yeah.
it's like maybe an hour job, at most.
Actually, now you got me curious because I will within the year do wheel bearings on this new car.
No, I don't know about I don't know about your Impala. I do know, like, because before this I had the Monte Carlo,
Yeah, and
and then I
those
think
are
it was actually
about
my
30.
pickup that
Those for the kind of the economy line of stuff can be about like 30 bucks because
yeah.
I put them in my Palace, same as your Monty. Um, they're
You would
really
think
pretty easy.
the Impala would be the same, but I guess our Impalas are a little bit newer than what I was working on before, so I can't really I don't know the prices off the top of my head.
Now I'm looking up for this new car. Now, granted, it's all-wheel drive, so it's a little. It's still the same style of how it all comes out. It's just kind of bigger bearing. They're all the same, and of course it's a little heavier duty because it's a 6-wheel stud deal. Yeah, those are more expensive. They're about for the more economy lines, $50. a deal. But like I said, they're a lot bigger bearing because it's a heavier vehicle. But still, it's. I guess I hadn't looked it up. Let's see, I will be doing all 4 of those up here. But they're fine for now. They're not growling. I usually wheel bearings. I've been one to kind of wait until I hear one making a little bit of growl, because usually wheel bearings just fail so slowly. If you feel a little bit of play, you got some time. It's not like the wheel's gonna fall off. It's not like the wheel's gonna fall off.
You've heard me talk about the stories that I've had with my wheel bearings.
Yeah.
So like that Escort, I let it growl for a long time, and it finally the growl.
Well, that's what
growl got louder, and that's was like, okay, I better finally replace
that's
this.
That's the thing. You can pretty much drive another whole year once it starts growling before you really probably have to worry. Now, I will say I know somebody that drove a wheel bearing so far that it got so hot that it eventually caught the grease on fire, burnt the CV joint rubber, and there's grease in there, caught that grease on fire and burn up the car, or partially burn up the car. I mean, but that thing had to have been just screaming. I mean, and this is going down, and she was going down the interstate too when all this happened. I'm like, how'd you burn up the car? I mean, because it had to have been screaming to make that much heat, the balls or rollers, whichever style it had in there, had to have been gone, and that's
I'm trying to think of which car this was. I think it might have been the Monty, but I'm not for sure. But I don't ever remember hearing it growl. Maybe it was, and I just hadn't gotten to it. I don't know. Sometimes I'm just not able to actually. I know it needs to be fixed, and I just can't. I just have to keep going until it's worse, and then I'm forced to replace it. But
see, now I usually replace them before they even make any noise. But
there's been some situations that I'm not able to do that. Like now, if it happened, I would be like, okay, yeah, that's growling. I probably should get that done. But so this one, I drove it. I heard it. It sounded like I caught a spring. Like what I'm talking like a a door spring or something, and it had unwound it or something. And then instead of growling or anything, it would just like you'd hear it go thump thump. And I was telling them, because I ended up driving it home, and which I probably shouldn't have. I couldn't drive full speed because it was an issue, but I could go like 30, so I went 30 so I could get home, because this was like at night, and I didn't really want to. It was at night in the winter, and I really didn't have any way to deal with it. I just had to get it home.
Right.
And I talked to the mechanic when I brought it in, and I was telling him what I was hearing, and he took the tire off, and he was looking in there. He said I'd lost a couple of the bearings, and so the thump I was hearing was when the bearing was coming up over the top and going, and then it had nothing in front of it, so it was just rolling as fast as it could till it hit the bearing in front of it. It did that all the way home.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I usually don't. I either replace them kind of out of the gate, sort of, or I kind of wait till they start growling. But
yeah,
a little bit of growl, I guess. I don't run them too long growling, but like I said, you can run them. You found out you can kind of run them for a while.
You can run them. You can run them a little bit. But that should at least tell you that you probably should be thinking about figuring out getting it replaced and what you need to do and
Right.
how you're gonna do it, and that you need to get your money set forth for it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, anyway, I mean, yeah, those are some interesting stories. But well, I suppose we've been going here, I think, long enough. I think we got the point across and then some on this. So you know what? Maybe we'll talk about maybe more what you decide. If you decide to go through with the kind of a little transmission refurb, or if you decide to just maybe throw a transmission conditioner type product in there just to get her going a little bit, get rid of it, and
Well,
get something different.
I've already actually done that.
Well,
so.
I guess what I'm saying is you might change your mind and think, well, maybe I'll just look for another something down, get an all-in-one type vehicle that'll fit, downsize to one vehicle or something. I don't know. Mine might change, but maybe we'll talk about that. I guess while we're at it, we haven't decided what day, but we're gonna do a special live stream next week, one time. Probably not a Monday night deal, but where we'll be.
It can't be. It won't be Tuesday night either.
Well, no, it can't be Tuesday night either. But we'll figure something out. Wednesday, Thursday. I was kind of thinking Thursday, but I got to look at my schedule on whatever. But we'll be both in person and undecided the topic. So I guess if you're watching this archive, leave a comment below, like maybe what you'd want us to talk about. But we always find out something interesting to talk about. And gosh, if we can even work out and maybe have a guest. Who knows? Who knows what'll happen? But we should be both in person, and we'll see how that goes. I'm really looking forward to it, actually. So we'll chat kind of later about that. But anyway, get subscribed on YouTube. Follow me on Twitch. Don't forget to follow Skull Crusher. You're up to 10 followers, right? Or you're over 10 followers.
20. I'm
20.
I'm at 20.
Wait a minute. I'm at like 7. I need to get to 10. And if you're on Facebook, screw you, Facebook people, because I need to get...
It's been a long grind.
Yeah. Screw you, Facebook people, because I only do it just because I can. I need to get that on my public page. I got to do a little bit different there. So really, follow Twitch, YouTube. Check out Skull Crusher. Actually, get over on his YouTube channel. He posts a few little, once in a while, posts some like compilation videos. Actually, we need to get, we're going to work on getting you on Restream so you can be streaming on YouTube as well. That's going to help you out, I think. But,
yeah.
Well, anyway, I don't have anything else. So, I think we'll chat later. We'll see you next week. And, yeah, well, thanks for watching.